Want me to nudge him? Yeah, nudge away.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 maddening things about the social dilemma.
I was the director of monetization at Facebook for 5 years.
This is a totally new species of power and influence.
We now have markets that trade in human futures.
For more discussions on topics like this, check out our channel Context TV. For this list, WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbes-Frushan sat down to watch Netflix's docudrama to look at arguments and counter-arguments relating to the social dilemma. Have you watched The Social Dilemma? What are your opinions? Let us know. Number 10. Politicians won't have all the solutions.
Following with another video? Beautiful. Let's squeeze in a sneakerhead before it starts.
As society comes to better understand just how influential and powerful tech platforms have become, it seems that those we entrust to define the rules, politicians, are struggling as much as we are to keep up with the changing times in tech. Just look at the questions that Congress had for Zuckerberg.
Well, how do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
And it doesn't stop there.
I'm probably going to be dead and gone, and I'll probably be thankful for it when all this shit comes to fruition.
It makes you wonder, is leaving our fate up to politicians when it comes to social media in our best interest? Number 9. The biggest nuance is who's abusing the tools. The social dilemma raises several fascinating arguments. For example, it equates the tactics amplified by social media with the totalitarian propaganda of World War II. But ultimately, this is what you get when you produce a documentary with like-minded people, a fairly one-dimensional view that omits many other details. One nuance worth noting is that using media for propaganda is nothing new.
We're all looking out for the moment when technology would overwhelm human strengths and intelligence. When is it going to cross the singularity, replace our jobs, be smarter than humans?
A century ago, William Randolph Hearst used his own newspaper to lead America into the Spanish-American War. Remember that line to his photographer? You furnish the pictures and I'll furnish the war? More recently, Rupert Murdoch's Fox was accused of being a key voice in pushing for the Iraq War. The only difference is that these technology tools are used by others and not the owners. Number 8. Why this time may indeed be different. You may have heard of Murphy's Law and of network effects. Ultimately, tech's growth has proven to be exponential and compounded by how much the tools have been optimized for you. Your feed's refresh nature is built to give you a dopamine hit each time, like a slot machine. What was sorely lacking in the documentary, though, was execs at these firms who refused to let their kids use these tools. Indeed, it's not like child psychologists are designing these tools, rather they're designed by tech designers, whose inherent biases may come through in the final product. As data scientist Kathy O'Neill puts it,
I like to say that algorithms are opinions embedded in code, and that algorithms are not objective.
Number 7. We enabled this monster, and we love it. It's easy to blame others for building these tools, but in theory, this is also on us, the users. After all, we're the ones using them. If mobile phones and 24/7 worldwide web access is addictive, it should be because you have the world in the palm of your hand, and you don't want to pay for it, or at least not much. Enter advertising. That's how media and communications have always worked. So, as individuals and parents, isn't the responsibility also on us? Can we just blame big tech? Of course, as a counterpoint, it's also worth considering that even if you don't use Google or Facebook products, they still track you all through the web. There's no real way to opt out. So if it looks and feels like your own private Truman Show, that's because it is. Number 6. The Hypocrisy, Part 1. What makes this debate really frustrating is the lack of awareness on all sides.
And they built this parallel money machine. We had such envy for that.
For one, some of the criticism stems from envy/jealousy. Google, a West Coast technology company founded in Stanford, mastered the greatest ad platform in the history of media.
This is what every business has always dreamt of.
It then took over New York's Madison Avenue, then Hollywood. It's very efficient, and many find it problematic that the system works with so few people at the helm.
So as humans, we've almost lost control over these systems.
It's true that effectively, since Google and Facebook's mastery of advertising systems, the most brilliant people have been recruited to figure out why users click on ads and not solve the climate crisis, pandemics, world hunger, or any other notable cause. Now, granted, as the documentary states, the only industries that refer to clients as users are drugs and software. And those who built and profited from the systems are suddenly displaying millionaire's remorse. Number 5. The Hypocrisy, Part 2. Equally annoying is the fact that those who built and profited are now crying foul. Case in point,
Chamath was the head of growth at Facebook early on, and he's very well known in the tech industry for pioneering a lot of the growth tactics that were used to grow Facebook at incredible speed.
Chamath Palihapitiya was a notable growth hacker at Facebook who's now an influential investor, even though this kind of testing happens in all sectors and industries. Roger McNamee was an early supporter and investor in Facebook. He's since penned Zucked, Waking Up to the Facebook Catastrophe, a book trashing Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook.
I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with.
Sean Parker, portrayed by Justin Timberlake in The Social Network,
Christy, what do you like to drink?
Went from bad boy to benevolent sage with a conscience. Is it a case of better late than never?
Kevin Systrom and Instagram, it's all of these people understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
Number 4. With great power comes great responsibility, but also greed and hubris.
I worked at Twitter. My last job there was the Senior Vice President of Engineering.
Sure, with power comes great responsibility. To diagnose the problem, you need to follow the money. And indeed, the rise of ad-supported business models has shifted the balance to views, engagement, watch time, attention.
His scrolling speed is slowing, nearing the end of his average session length. Decreasing ad load, pull back on friends and family.
When asking, why don't notifications just show the photos they're notifying you about? Well, it's the same reason a mall would make you go around to take the next escalator to go one floor higher. Your attention is their currency. The Social Dilemma brushes by one of the main questions about these firms. Are the right people at the helm? Zuckerberg started Facebook to rate women at Harvard, allegedly took ideas from the Winklevoss network, Harvard Connection, and then parlayed that into his empire today, clearly not foreseeing what he'd unleash. But it's not just the leaders at the top. Even the soldiers who execute on the field appear to be in the dark about the massive stakes.
You could shut down the service and destroy whatever it is, $20 billion of shareholder value.
20 billion? We're talking multiple trillions. Ultimately, it's true that having a small group of like-minded individuals building products that affect 2 billion people is far and away problematic. When the smartest people have been recruited by tech giants to figure out how to get users to click on ads, it may lead to a less than desirable outcome. Number 3. Regulation is fait accompli. America's embrace of laissez-faire economics means that when things go to the extreme, they really go to the extreme. Much of the country's interpretation of monopolies traces back to the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. The previous times the U.S. went after companies on monopolistic grounds were when they broke up John Rockefeller's Standard Oil, the big telco AT&T, and more recently, Microsoft. Microsoft's antitrust lawsuit paved the way for Google's emergence.
For so long as our economy works in that way and corporations go unregulated, they're going to continue to destroy trees, to kill whales.
While government may not have all the answers, indeed regulation is needed because corporations don't act in the best interest of all stakeholders.
We're learning as we go, and certainly there is a lot of value that something like a Facebook or certainly Google provides. But at the end of the day, there is some social responsibility that we all have. And unfortunately, there's always going to be bad people in this world. But we need to provide some rails in which they have to operate within.
And you need to give them disincentive that discourages them from acting badly.
Do you think we're going to get there?
We have to.
Number 2, you are the product.
We now have markets that trade in human futures.
A popular saying in the Valley is that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. You are followed.
Every single action you take is carefully monitored and recorded.
But it also speaks to the web's ultimate benefit, which is a democratization of the web and the disintermediation of industries that also accumulated massive power due to inefficiencies in the marketplace. Data may indeed be the new oil. It's valuable. Algorithms can predict what you will want or like in the future. Time spent in front of each image stared at is logged. Full psychological profiles of you are stored at each social platform. They control your social habits more than you do. And you are sold to the highest bidder.
Where you're gonna go. I can predict what kind of videos will keep you watching. I can predict what kinds of emotions tend to trigger you.
But throughout history, laissez-faire capitalism tragically rewards bad behavior. Remember Honoré de Balzac's behind every great fortune is a crime? Maybe not literal crime, but an exploitation of a loophole. You can hate the player or the game.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. It'll get worse before it gets better.
One of the problems with Facebook is that as a tool of persuasion, it may be the greatest thing ever created.
Ultimately, there might not be any scenario where things get better before they get worse. Fake news is creating chaos more than ever.
Eventually, this culminated in a man showing up with a gun, deciding that he was going to go liberate the children from the basement of the pizza place.
And yes, social media amplifies that.
And I can tell Facebook, give me 1,000 users who look like that. Facebook will happily send me thousands of users that look like them.
Fake news travels 6 times faster on Twitter than real news. While we've seen firsthand meddling in elections and actual violence in far-off places like Myanmar, it's not inconceivable for civil war in America and the end of civilization here in the USA as well. It's easy to blame social media for the destabilization of foreign governments, but that's been happening for centuries. The only difference is that technology has replaced more conventional weapons. If you liked The Social Dilemma, make sure you watch Context TV's documentary about capitalism, Fox and the Henhouse.
A specter is haunting America. For decades, no one dared to utter the term socialism, let alone propose socialist thought. But these days, capitalism is on the defensive, fending for itself as even the largest beneficiaries of the system are starting to question its fairness and equitable nature.
Can't do it by just pissing around at the margins of the problem. We've got to go straight to the heart of capitalism and overthrow it.
I don't know why there's still socialists on the planet. It has never worked.